Hey y'all, welcome to class. It's Mr. Mackey. Today's video we're going to be talking about what are dynamics, what are articulations, and what are some symbols used for pitch, and it'll build on previous lessons. So to start off with, let's go ahead and talk about dynamics. First and foremost, dynamics are going to be the easier part of this lesson. The tricky part is just memorizing which one is. So forte, we'll start with forte. That means loud. You can go ahead and fill that in your notes. Means loud. And forte, for as an example, we would play more in the middle right here, less away from the fingerboard, but more right here. And we would put more arm weight down to get a bigger, thicker, fuller sound. Okay, so it's a bigger, thicker sound. So let's move on. What's piano? Piano is going to be the opposite of forte, so you guessed it, it's soft. Now, when you think of the piano, don't think of, actually like playing a piano. There's a different reason why the piano is called a piano. When we say piano, we mean soft. So here's what some piano playing looks and sounds like. Piano playing is going to be a little closer to the fingerboard, a little bit above our sweet spot, with less arm weight, and it's more subtle. As opposed to forte, which was piano is. So there's a definite difference between the two. It should be very audible, very apparent when we go from forte to piano in music, so remember that. The next dynamic is going to be mezzo forte. So if you have loud and soft, forte, piano, we have medium loud, mezzo forte, smack dab in the middle. So forte, piano, mezzo forte. And to go ahead and give you an example of what mezzo forte will look like, that's going to be in our sweet spot. That's going to be where we play. If there's no dynamics in the music, it's always going to be mezzo forte, okay? So if piano is and forte is, mezzo forte is going to be in the middle. Again, piano is, forte is, and then mezzo forte. So less noticeable than the difference between piano and forte. But nevertheless, if we were to go from piano to mezzo forte to forte, such as we will as an exercise in class, you should definitely hear a little bit of difference between each of them, but you'll hear the most difference between piano and forte. Okay, so that is dynamics. And to go ahead and give you an example of what it looked like in music, you should have diagrams in your notes. Forte is going to be an F, okay? Much like our F hole F, so a cursive F. Piano is going to be a P, and mezzo forte is going to be an M, F. Again, the F looking like one of these fancy little Fs found in our instruments, which I think is pretty neat. So yeah, we'll go ahead and move on from dynamics. Let's look at articulations. So articulation is something, if you've taken orchestra class in 5th grade, it's going to be a little bit new. So we're all going to be in the same boat with articulation, but I promise we'll understand. The first one we're going to talk about is staccato. So what is staccato? Staccato, when you see a note with a little dot over it, and you'll see an example in your notes, that means to play it very short and to lift the bow even just a little bit. So staccato will look like this. We're going to be in the middle of the bow. Okay. Fast staccato might look like this. So staccato being very short as opposed to normal playing. Staccato is very short. So we'll get more involved in that. But to play staccato, we're going to be in the middle of the bow, and we're going to bounce the bow just a little bit. When I say bounce, I don't mean we're not hammering our instrument with our bow. We're just letting the bounciness of the bow help us out a little bit, but it's not the main driving factor of staccato. So let's move on from staccato. And again, we're going to practice this in class. Legato. So the opposite of staccato. Staccato is short. Legato will be long. It even starts with a little L, so that's a great way to remember legato, long. So if a normal note is with a little bit of separation for each note, legato, long notes will have even less separation in each note. But legato, what it is not meaning to play slower. Legato does not mean play slower. Legato means have less gap in between the notes. So legato is supposed to be very, very smooth and very, very lush playing. Much easier to play than staccato. You just simply don't release the note as soon when you play legato. Now, what's an accent mark? A little accent mark will be a little tiny sideways V over a note, and it might be actually reversed. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. It'll look like this. You'll have a little example on your paper. An accent mark is going to be a very swift, precise placement of an over-exaggerated beat. That was a very complicated example. It sounds like this here. So if I'm playing a group of notes, did you catch that? The one accented note popped out because I added a little more arm weight into it and just pulled the bow. But what we don't want to do is go overboard and go. We don't want to, and end up elbowing our stand partner. We just want to give it a little bit more oomph in that one note to make it stand out. Okay, so that's an accent. Now we're going to move on to symbols. So what symbols are used for pitch? And this will build on our previous lesson. Remember pitch? Let's get into some symbols that will show us the kind of pitch we need to use. So with sharps look like pound signs, look like hashtags. They're a little different, don't get me wrong, but that you'll understand what I mean if I show you something like that. There's a little picture in your notes. That means to raise a note by a half step. What do I mean by that? Let's say I'm playing F natural. And again, if you don't know what natural is, think of natural as a clean slate, nothing's done to the note. This is the note in its most natural state, right? So F natural. Now if I raise it by adding a sharp, so it's now F sharp, we're going to add a half step. Put a finger down and play F sharp, which for everyone that will be F on the tape. So if you want to play F natural, which is our next note, we would lower the pitch by a half step and make it natural. Okay, so again, to recap, the natural note is the natural state of the note, no flat, no sharps. A sharp is when you raise the note by a half step by putting an extra finger down. We don't add two fingers because that makes a whole step. We want a half step, just one finger. So F natural, natural state. F sharp, we raise it by a half step. But now we're going to talk about natural. So E, we all know E. E is going to be in its natural state. Let's say we were to raise E by a half step by making it E sharp. We will really hardly ever see that in this classroom, but theoretically, an E sharp would be the same as E natural. Here's why. I'm going to raise E natural to an E sharp by adding a note. Adding a finger down. So by adding this finger down, I then raise the note by a half step, fulfilling the requirements of E sharp, and it's going to sound the same as an F natural. E sharp and F natural are the same because they're in the same spot, the fingerboard. But if you see an E sharp, you just simply raise it by a half step because sharps raise it by a half step. Now we're going to talk about flats. Let's talk about E again. If we have E natural, which is nothing done to the note, clear slate, E natural, if we add a flat next to it, it would then be lowered by a half step. So now if the tape's right here and the nut's right here, I'm lowering that note by a half step. And now we have E flat. So E natural, then lower it by a half step to get E flat. Okay, so let's review. If we have a natural note that's nothing done to it, clean slate, E natural, A natural, B natural, D natural, nothing done to the note. Now let's talk about sharps. Sharp is when you take a natural note and you raise it by a half step. So our F sharp is actually just taking our F natural and raising it by a half step. So, and for violins, you'll use your second finger, don't be all confused. It'll be on the tape regardless, okay? So a sharp raises the note by a half step, and a flat lowers the note by a half step. So we have E natural, we're going to lower the pitch, the note, by a half step. Okay, so E natural, then E flat lowers it. Okay, so we just reviewed what are dynamics. We have forte, piano, mezzo forte. What are articulation, staccato, bump, 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 legato, long, and accent, which is where you go bump, 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 right? You have the little one note that sticks out with the accent. And then for cymbals, we have the sharp cymbal, right? Raises the note by a half step. We have the natural cymbal, the note's in its most natural state, nothing done to the note. And then we have the flat cymbal, which is where we lower the note by a half step, okay? So this video, I know there's a lot of content. Go ahead and keep this in your, go ahead and try to save this video if you can and review it. It's going to be super crucial. The worksheet that we're going to look at is going to help clarify some stuff. So hope you enjoyed this video and hope it was super helpful, and have a good day.